Hello, everyone. Welcome to March 2026's Authors Chat. We are so excited to host this evening a USA Today bestselling author to chat with us about her oh so juicy and drama-filled F1 romance, Faster. We had so much fun reading and discussing this book. We can't wait to talk to her about it. So, without further ado, to chat about Faster, let's welcome Andie J. Christopher.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me and for reading the book. I really appreciate it. I love it.
Oh,
So,
we loved it too. Welcome, Andy. And so everyone knows we're doing this a tiny bit differently this evening, and we have pre-recorded this chat, and we're going to be posting it for our live spot on March 30th at 9 p.m. So therefore, Megan has joined Ozma and myself on the chat panel for the evening, and we're going to be jumping right into the chat now.
yeah, thank you so much for being accommodating to my
Oh,
Oh,
my
no
no.
worries. This works wonderfully for us.
Okay, great.
So for the first question, these are just kind of our little getting to know you
Okay.
questions. If you had to pick a favorite character from any romance series to be your book boy or girlfriend, who would you choose?
Jared from Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because I love that he's a little bit of a sociopath, but only deploys it in a positive direction most of the time. So I love Jared. So that's and I've told Kennedy this on multiple occasions. And in fact, if anyone says Jared is there, like somehow I always see it on social media. Someone said that Jared is their book boyfriend, and I find it. I'm like, no, 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 he's my book boyfriend.
Do you remember the first romance novel you read or the one that got you hooked on romance?
Yes, it is a Harlequin romance from like the early 90s, I think like 1991 that I found in my grandmother's closet in like a grocery bag full of like category romances. It's called The Cloud Holders. And I don't think that I have a copy somewhere. I haven't like revisited it, but I don't think it holds up. I liked it because there was like topless kissing and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting to me." So, and I was like 10 years old and I was like, "Oh yeah, like, I could be into kissing a man who hates me." So like that's because they hate it's an enemies to lovers and um deals with like a native Hawaiian artifact, which is I think one of the reasons why I don't think it holds up all that well. But yeah, that's the one that like got me.
So, Faster features a triad relationship, which made us wonder if you can remember the first Why Choose romance that you read, or the one that made you think, oh, that could be fun to write about one day.
Absolutely. So it's called Laid Bare by Lauren Dane. And she had a series of like rock star and rock star adjacent romances in like I think she published them between like 2008 and 2013, and they were with Berkeley. But it was like there was a lot of like tragic backstory about it. Like the female main character had been like stalked and like there's a like trigger warning for like a child death in the past, but it was I was like, oh, this is like it, and it was like a combination of like that like sort of relationship dynamic in the book. I have to say, like with all of the adult racist discourse, I'm like, I think polyamory is for books for me. like like I think it's very messy when it's in in real life or in a memoir. But anyway, I just thought it was like it's like a sizzling hot book. Plus, she was one of the first romance authors that I like. I took a break from reading romance between like undergrad and law school, and I kind of picked them up again at the end of law school because I was like, I need this. But it was one of the first times that I read like women that I could be friends with or women that I'd grown up with. And those were like the characters. So yeah, that was the first one. And then um I've read many others since. But yeah.
We ask every author who sits down with us this after the topic came up in one of our first guest books. Do you have a chocolate drawer?
Mm. No, there's like a cabinet in the kitchen that has some chocolate, but I don't have a chocolate drawer. And I've never had a chocolate drawer because I feel like it's not the best place to store chocolate, like especially if you're in a room that could have a lot of temperature fluctuations. Um, I used to keep a lot of chocolate in the door to my refrigerator. So I guess that sort of qualifies as I did have a chocolate drawer at one point. Yeah.
So we know that Faster was obviously your love letter to F1, but we also felt like, as readers, that it could have been a love note to the old school romance novels of the 80s and early 90s, as well as the soaps and the nighttime dramas of that time period. Are we correct on that?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. So when I first thought about writing an F1 romance, I was just gonna do like the triad. And then I did a podcast. I read Lucky by Jackie Collins for a podcast with Aaron Leaf, Learning the Tropes. And this was, yeah, late 2023 or early 2024. And I was like, I loved how propulsive it was and how it covered different like love stories in the same book, and it felt like a nighttime soap, and I did kind of grow up watching my mom and grandma's like nighttime soaps with them. So definitely. And it, I also like read my grandma's like Judith Crans books and I also when I was when I had started to write it and when I was committed to this like format, I was at a comedy show with a friend and she said, "Oh, so like Jilly Cooper, like the Writers series." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it is sort of like that." And then like the show came out and like sort of affirmed that I like for me that I felt like readers were ready for something like a little bit different, but also that felt like a throwback.
So, did you have a favorite show or story, as our grandmothers called them?
Like I always okay, so I always watched The Guiding Light during the day with my grandma, and I think that was my favorite. Um, because I could most continuously like catch up with those characters, and I think my mom would record that one on VHS and like just keep recording over it every day for like a long time and almost like until we got like a TiVo. And subsequently then it went off the air. So, but yeah, I think The Guiding Light was probably my favorite. One summer I got really into Days of Our Lives. I also like would dip in and out with Passions, but that one was a little too bonkers for me. But yeah, and then as far as nighttime soaps, I remember more of the like aesthetics of Dynasty in Dallas than any of the specifics. But I knew that I when I was watching it, it was a good time, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So to piggyback off of that, did you get to watch with a parent or grandparent, or did you have to sneak it?
Oh no, I could watch it with my mom and my grandma and like because they weren't gonna change their stories just because the kid was around. Like, come on. So like I guess I like grew up in a somewhat like permissive like household when it comes to like media consumption. So yeah, of course I wasn't like sneaking around watching it.
Do you have any recommendations for current TV shows with lots of crazy drama and messy characters? Asking for our friends.
Okay, so I would definitely say Rivals if people haven't caught up on that one that's coming out with like a second season. And then I've recently been very, very obsessed with Industry. It is on HBO and it is a show about like young people in their 20s working in finance in the city of London. And it is like messy and dark and really unpredictable. Also like super sexy in some ways, and like then the sex is not sexy in other instances, but it's yeah, it that's I'm very into that show right now.
So, Faster didn't center around a singular love story or relationship, but it sounds like fairly early on you knew you wanted to write a book that featured multiple storylines. But how did you decide that?
It was really I read Lucky and they were talking about it and I just felt like because I was writing about Formula One and how like fast it is that I wanted to write um something like I wanted to be fast, I wanted it to be sexy, and I felt like that was the best way to do it. Um but yeah, I just felt like that format and the subject matter really felt like they could have good chemistry together. And then I'm also like, I like to write shorter format romances. Like ideally I would never write a single title, one couple romance of like above like 60,000 words. I don't understand how people can write like 100. Like I think it's because I'm an attorney in my day job that like I just like concision. And so I felt like, okay, I can put like three stories in and it can feel like rich and layered. Um, and also move at the pace that I need it to. So that was really the logic behind it.
As you were writing and building out all the relationships and characters for Faster, did you discover that you had a favorite pairing or character?
No, I mean, I love all of them. I felt like I probably most identified with Cece a little bit because she was like the first female main character that I came up with, but I also identified with Michaela in a lot of ways. Like growing up and being like the only person who looked like me in a lot of spaces, I felt like yeah, I felt a strong connection to her. I don't have a favorite male main character, and actually that's a lie. Liam's probably the favorite because he's like the most like adult and mature and yeah, I really loved Liam. So, but yeah, I mean, I love them all. So,
So one of the things you did so well in Faster was find the right balance in the interplay between Ethan, Cece, and Luca, that you were able to transition their storyline from one of cheating and betrayal to one of a commitment triad relationship. Can you talk about the thought process that goes into creating that balance?
I mean, I think that just sort of happened organically. I think like the genesis of that storyline was like, I just don't believe that none of these drivers have hooked up. I just don't believe that, that hasn't happened. And then there's quite a few instances in F1 history of like drivers who were like formerly best friends growing up, either being on the same team or like joining F1 together and having a sort of like rival relationship come from that. And I just thought it would be interesting if like the rivalry was like spiced up by the fact that, one of them was in love with the other one's wife and also in love with him. So that it just kind of unfolded. And it's not the first like triad that I had written. I had written like a Christmas novella, All They Want for Christmas, that had a triad, and that was like only 25,000 words. And it only covered like a day and a half of time. So I was like, I just want to see if I can. It's always like when I'm writing, it's kind of an experiment. It's like I'm gonna see if this works or see if this is like satisfying.
Um, so this is something our reading group had fun debating, but what relationship from the book do you think has the most longevity and will last longest after the book ends? Because of all the things that made this book so juicy,
Mhm.
those are all the things that in real world tend to be the things that are detrimental for longevity in relationships. So we had a lot of fun debating that. Like we have our bets on who we think have the long haul going, but who do you think has what it would take for like the true long haul? Because, there's the convenience of being able to say happily ever after end when you have a
Yeah.
book.
I mean, in my head, they're all going to live happily together forever. And I'm going to write a second book, so I think you'll I might, revisit some characters and some complications in a second book, possibly. I don't know for sure, but or I could do like all three brand new things, and you could just see everyone in the background. However, I mean, I think Liam and Michaela probably, um, because yeah, it's very, very like loosely like Toto and Susie like coded. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think they'll all end up together for like, everyone has complications, but in the Andy Christopher verse, like everyone ends up happily for together forever, even if they get in fights. So
So Faster was a juicy banana pants romp, which lent itself to being chock full of tropes. How did you decide which tropes to include and exclude in the book?
um that again sort of came up organically. I was like, I wanted to write a triad. I wanted to write enemies to lovers. I wanted to write like ex-boyfriend's dad slash boss. So I wanted to like jam a lot of tropes in, but like I didn't. I was like, I don't think I could put a secret baby in there. I think that would be too much, too much. So, and I am seriously toying with writing a secret baby because like I really miss those, like, because they are soapy, because you would always have a secret baby on a soap. So, I feel like that's like a natural outgrowth of this like world that I built. But yeah, I was like, it's like adding herbs and spices and waiting until it was like, okay, that's enough. Um, so yeah, it kind of just like I am such a pantser, and that like I have a kind of idea of where I'm going, and I sort of pick out some, major tropes, but then I kind of other stuff just happens.
So, as a reader, do you have favorite tropes that you seek out when you're looking for your next book to read? Are there ones that you just absolutely cannot resist?
I mean, no, I feel like I'm a pretty open reader. Um, I'm trying to think of like anything that's like a little bit forbidden and taboo, but not like super forbidden and taboo. That's like really my sweet spot. So like QB Tyler writes like whenever like she comes out with something new, I'm always like, oh yeah, yeah, I can see how like that sounds good to me. I would like some more. So that's like one author who reliably is like, oh yeah, dad's best friend, like which is like, just it's you in real life. Like, but like in book world, it can work. Like the nanny, and I'm like, oh, terrible, but love it. Yeah, I love to like I love it when an author takes big swings. And so if like the book description like tells me that there's like a big swing, then I'm gonna be attracted to that trope, I think.
So let's talk about F1 for a little bit. You are a huge fan of the sport. Were you able to just leverage your knowledge from being a fan to write the book, or did this book still require additional research to write? If so, can you tell us about that research? And did anything you discover increase or reduce your joy in the sport?
I mean, I like once when I became a fan of Formula One, I really sort of immersed myself in it. And I read Bernie Collins' book about, I think it's called How to Win a Grand Prix, and it talks a lot about like the logistics of how the sport works. I listened to quite a few podcasts, like Lily Herman, who now has a new Formula One podcast called No Grip, had a like sort of introductory podcast, and I can't remember what it was called, but there were two seasons of it, and Lily Herman, she hosted the first one. There's also a podcast called Deadly Passions, it was Deadly Passions, Terrible Joys by Elizabeth Blackstock, who's a motorsports reporter who talks a lot about the history of Formula One and how it's changed, and like a lot of like people from the past who died who had very colorful lives. And so I kind of like took some of like the ambiance from that. And then I also follow a motorsports content creator. It's motorsports tech. She covers a lot of these things, called Tony Cowan Brown. And so like learned a lot, and she has really wonderful informative TikToks. So like I got a lot of information from her. And what's interesting is like most of my F1 like follows or F1 like um information sources were women. So which I hadn't thought a lot about, but I think it's because they're delivering the information that I wanted to know about the sport specifically from their perspective. So, but yeah, those were um my main sources. I also had I have F1 TV. It's now like you can get like the races as part of Apple, but if you sign into F1 TV, the app, with your Apple TV credentials, you can get like old races dating back to like the 70s. And so I watched a lot of old races to see how things had changed and kind of just really immersed myself in it. So
As a writer, how do you make the call on how much detail to include on the background of a sport like F1 to support the world building for readers who may not follow or have as much background information going into the story?
what I try to do is I try to give enough context that like people aren't going to be confused about what's happening without making it too explainy, which is hard. Um but like I think it was a matter of like I'd been watching this sport for like 3 years at that point and had done a lot of research. And so there was enough information that I had that I felt like, but not so much. I hadn't been watching since I was like 7, but not so much that I would like necessarily skip over things. And then, once I got to the editing process, I had an editor who, had been to the Monaco Grand Prix just because she had happened to be in Monaco during that weekend, but could give could give feedback on whether or not like, oh, you're missing this. And also like my agents both read it, and one was a Formula One fan, one had never um never paid attention to the sport before. Um and they were able to give a good perspective on whether or not I was adding too much or too little context.
So, as a fan, is part of the allure attraction to F1 the glamour of the sport? And how do you think the glamorous settings and lifestyles lend themselves to romance storytelling?
I mean, I don't seek out romances about people like who have money troubles. It's like one of my like weird quirky things. Like I don't want to be, when I'm in a romance, I don't want to be worried about money. And so like I think that's why a lot of people like billionaire or liked billionaire romances, but now we know who all the billionaires are. I consider Formula One harm reduction for the state of having billionaires. So I think it's like a safe-ish container for like, writing about that kind of glamour. Cause like, you have like nefarious characters and, obviously it's excessive, but it's also like, it also speaks to like the human id. Like we like shiny things, we like wealth, we like opulence. So yeah, I think like it's really just like perfect for romance storytelling because like you're in a new world, you're traveling across the globe. um to like sexy locations and like all sports romances, like, the characters are gonna be hot and like um and have access to all of these like huge romantic gestures. So it's just, I think it's like what billionaire romance was in the early aughts. So it's like, except I think it's closer to like werewolf romance than vampire romance, because someone once said that like all billionaire romances are vampire romances. So I think it's but there are teams and and like I think it just hits all the five ids. So you get the big ones, you get the competition, you get the danger, you get the glamour, you get the beauty, you get the and the sexiness. And because it's tactile and they're like, sweaty when they get out of the car and all of that. So I think it's just like really the perfect container.
So, still sticking with F1, are there certain drivers or personalities in F1 that were inspirations for the characters in Faster?
I mean, I've heard like Toto Wolff was definitely an inspiration for Liam. Um Brent, everyone says he's Lance Stroll, but to me in my head he's like a combination of like Lando Norris and Lance Stroll. Um Not that, Lando's dad didn't buy him a team, but like it costs so much to become a Formula One driver, because until you make it to Formula One, you actually don't get paid to race. You pay or have sponsors paying to keep you in a seat in F2 and F3 and the lower formulas. So to me, I was like, yeah, because Lando seems like I love Lando, but he does seem like he's kind of a little shit. So when I was writing like a little shit of a character, I feel like Luca, like in terms of his appearance, to me looks a little bit like Daniel Ricciardo, who's a retired driver. Um, but there's this lore about Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. They carted together, they were best friends. When Lewis joined the Mercedes team, he they had this rivalry and um stopped being friends. Like to this day, they kind of barely speak to each other. So even though like Nico won one championship and then retired in 2016. So, but like Lewis still sends his daughters Christmas gifts. So it's like, oh, okay. So obviously I have no idea if these two men are in love with each other, but it's not the behavior of two men who are not in love with each other. I'll tell you that.
Your next book, Formula He's the One, is set to come out this week on the 31st and is a YA romance set in the world of F1.
Mhm.
Can you tell us about it? And do you think you'll write more books set on the F1 circuit in the future?
So Formula He's the One is a YA romance, so it's about as different as you can get to Faster. There's like hand holding and some kissing, and that's the extent of the intimacy on page, which I was like, I don't really want to write about teenagers having sex. Like that's not for me. So it is a fun, like kind of bubbly. Well, there's like a theme of grief because you got a dead mom, because like everyone's first YA has to have a dead mom, right? Um, and like she's like she wants to be an engineer. The drivers, like it's pure pop, bubblegum pop fantasy. Um, and it's really fun. It comes out in paperback in September. It comes out in ebook on Tuesday, and it was like a really interesting challenge to write about characters that young, because I don't even know that I remember being that young. So um yeah, it was a real test for my skills. I will definitely be writing like a follow-up to Faster. I don't know that I'll be delving back into YA. Um, like I said, it was a real challenge, and I'm like pleased with the result, but I was like, like I was like, frankly, don't know if I'm cut out for this. But it's fun. I hope that younger readers enjoy it, and then, in 5, 6 years, pick up my other books.
So a little bit piggybacking off of that, what drew you to writing a YA romance?
Harper Collins, bookstore, like their YA publishing imprint actually approached me and asked me if I would be interested in doing a YA F1 romance. And, I was like interested because A, it was a job, and B, like it sounded like an interesting challenge. So yeah, that's kind of how that I don't know that I would have thought to do it myself. Like
So you have published both Trad and Indie, and at this point, what do you see as the pros and cons as of both for you as an author?
Okay, so I'm kind of in a weird place about it because I'm really thinking about like my next book, which is the book I'm working on now, is not an F1 book. I'm thinking about how I want to publish it. I think for debut authors, trad can have like a really it can help you build a readership that's through their sales and distribution channels. And generally, if they have a debut author that they're really excited about, they'll put a lot of effort into marketing and publicity. I think when someone has, a backlist, there's a lot of different moving pieces to consider. It's like if your track is not what publishers are looking for. Like, and I'm not sure what's happening with publishing right now. It seems like a lot of people are only getting picked up after their books have done well in indie. So I'm just because it was like 2018 when I first sold a book to Berkeley. Everything is so different right now. So I feel like ill qualified to advise. And I think it's a case by case for every author and every book. Um, and I think a part of it for me is like knowing that if I go with a traditional publisher, they need to be on board with like an actual book tour and putting my face in readers' faces because that tends to sell more books for me. Um, as opposed to just pulling the levers in terms of like online ads and like selling ebooks, which I'm also not that great at doing on my own, but I do have like a newsletter that I can sell books to, so that does help if I decided to go indie. So I'm just like there's pros and cons to everything. I feel like in trad, especially um if you've been publishing for a while, it sometimes feels like a fight to get any resources devoted to your book. And so I think a lot of the authors that you know, I debuted with are not writing anymore. So publishing is just a very hard business. And I'm certainly glad it's not the only thing I do because like that would be just terrifying. And I think then you have to really consider I got to publish indie under one pen name, I got to publish trad under another, and you have to have your finger in a lot of different pots. Um, but I think it varies case by case, person to person. I don't mean to sound gloomy about traditional publishing. Like everyone I worked with at my publishers was wonderful. It's just a matter of like there's not enough resources to give everyone like a big splashy release. And I feel like a lot of really wonderful books get um are don't get the attention that they deserve. So
Yeah, and I think there's a lot going on in the industry right now, and there's a lot of
yeah,
upheaval. So,
it's a mess.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So we have noticed over the past 7 years of meeting and chatting with romance authors that there are a good number of you in the legal to publishing pipeline.
Mhm.
Do you think there is something about the legal profession that lends itself to creating novelists?
Yeah, I do actually. I think because legal education and working in law is so focused on like communication skills and that and sort of that and writing and a lot of the topics that we're thinking and writing and communicating about in our day jobs are kind of dry, that it does really sort of lend itself to finding a way to creatively express. Like, I'm using my legal skills to creatively express when I'm writing, and so it's just the skills are transferable. I think there's a lot of, like, John Grisham is a lawyer. There's a lot of like, a lot of male lawyers end up writing mysteries
Mhm.
and thrillers and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
and a lot of female lawyers end up writing and mysteries and thrillers. But I think, yeah, it's just you're using the skills that you use up every day, but you're playing with your brain in a different way. So it doesn't feel as tiring as, writing a 50-page brief.
So your bio states that prickly herons are your hallmark. What do you love about writing about women who are sharp-edged and complex?
I mean, I think, like, in a lot of media, like a lot of, a lot of creative people don't want to write like complex and prickly female characters or queer characters. And so I think I'm just sort of, committed to saying, like, there's happily ever afters for like bitches too. And so I just feel really strongly that I want to write about, like, you know, I want to write about the people in my life in a kind and forgiving way. And so, and people are all very complex. Um and also I think I started writing in the mid-aughts, and I was just like, part of it was like I was writing romance, but I was also tapping into like feminine rage. So like those two things sort of combined to like create like the archetype of an Andie J. Christopher heroine.
So we wanted to ask about drunk romance history. A lot of us discovered you through those videos, and because they were so much fun, is that something that you would ever revisit in some format?
I always like I am seriously thinking about it because it was such a fun way to talk to some of my favorite authors. I just, like, I would need to figure out like podcasting, because I think it would be like a good like, so it's one of those things that, like, if I, have some time, I will figure it out. But I loved those conversations. They were so much fun. And yeah, I would 100% revisit if it worked out. I need like a boyfriend who's also a podcast producer is really what I need.
Yeah, I wish figuring out podcasting was something that was like just an easy turn on switch. It's one of those things that lives, I think, on our to-do list that just
Mhm.
we never get around to.
Right, right. Yeah. And like Instagram Live is always changing how you can like store, like, I don't even know if a lot of the videos exist anymore, but some of them were of a time, and I'm
Yeah,
glad that people saw them, but I'm also glad that people aren't continuing to watch them all the time. So
also fair.
yeah. But they were good. It was good times. And there's so many books that we didn't cover. So
So, Andie, this is your chance to add to our TBRs. What have you read lately that you think people need to read if they haven't? And what book do you currently have on your TBR that you are the most excited about?
okay. So I have been in a bit of a reading slump since early 2025, but I do have some recommendations. So I would say, and this is a far out TBR because it doesn't come out until March of 2027, but The Lotus Inn by Nisha Sharma um gives old school Nora Roberts vibes. Like, people who love an old school romance are gonna love it, and I think people are gonna discover that they love this style of romantic suspense. I am heavily rooting on romantic suspense to come back. Okay.
Would love
Uh, yeah. Love it, love it, love it. I One of the things that I have been able to I have been working on since I feel like late 2024 is reading all of Zoe Draven's backlist. She writes sci-fi romance, but she 100% knows the job. She I think it says in her bio on one of her, at least one of her books, that she started out reading Harlequin Presents. So she's writing sci-fi romance that feels old school in a way. Like it's just, and they're like blazing hot and super fun. I'm currently reading a book by Jessica Cage called I think I accidentally conjured a demon boyfriend, and it's very fun, super sexy, like light romantic-ish kind of vibes. Um, I'm always like prescribing like old but like y'all have read all of the Clapuses, so all of those books that I like assigned to like new like you're um I also have a secret, not so secret affinity for motorcycle club romances. And so Scarlett Cole, writing as S. Cole, has two great like motorcycle romance series that like are great. Jade Hernandez has like two motorcycle club romances set in Mexico. Um yeah, they're so cool. And those are great, and I really hope she writes more. Um and then on my TBR, I have Tia Williams. I got like a NetGalley widget just out of the blue. I didn't even ask for it. So I was like, I'm really excited to read The One Who Got Away. I also have on my list is The Paddock Club by Madge Merrill. It's the follow-up to her first F1 romance, which was Slipstream. And then I'm super excited for Kate Claiborne's new book, which is coming out not this week, but the next week. So I'm super excited for that one too.
And we were excited. We grabbed the widget of Lisa Kleypas that's coming out a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I literally I would, but I have been in so and I have been terrible about finishing books, like even ones that like I'm supposedly gonna blurb, but like I have sitting there and I feel guilty about it. But like I just for some reason in the past like year and a half or so, I haven't had the best attention span.
Um, Guilty, but
Yeah.
I am committed that I
Yeah.
will.
I'm going to get one of those brick things so that I have to stay off my phone for like an extended period every day, and that like the only thing I'll be allowed to access is Kindle. So I think that that's like truly the answer for me, or hopefully.
I've started reading print books for that reason, like sometimes,
Oh,
like some of
yeah.
them to get away. But so for Formula, He's the One is out on the 31st.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else going on this year that you want your readers and fans to know about and be excited for?
I don't have anything else this year. I don't like that I can announce right now. I am working on a book. If I finish it and get it edited and decide to self-publish it, it'll probably come out this year. But if I sell it to a publisher, it'll probably be next year or 2028, because you know how that goes. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying to plug away as much as possible on writing. And like I live in Minneapolis, so the first couple months of the year were not super duper productive for me. So
Are you going to be going to any other events for the rest of the year? Because you had gone
nope,
to Love Y'all? Nope.
cleared my calendar. I had so much fun at Love Y'all. So much fun that I got a terrible cold. Um, but and I had a great time, at least on the first day of Sports Romance Con. I wasn't able to get back for the second day because we had a blizzard. Um and that was local, so I didn't get a hotel room. So that was somewhat of a fail, but I had a great time meeting amazing readers. I do want to start like utilizing my Substack to like talk to like just talk, make videos and talk to readers more and like, find out what they're into. Because I think I have like a pretty healthy so if they want to come find me on the Stern Brunch Daddy Digest on Substack, I am there. And my goal is to send out more newsletters or just like short form videos or what have you. And maybe that would be a good platform to bring back drunk romance history, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm working on something that's a little bit darker. And I'm not sure if we would call it like darkish romance or romantic suspense or what we're calling it, but I'm enjoying myself. So if I end up self-publishing that I please get excited for it because it's gonna be fun. So
We will.
We will,
thank you.
definitely.
Be like, please clap for me.
We will. Yes, we do. We're excited.
Okay. Well, Andie, thank you again for sitting down with us to chat about Faster. We can't say how, like, enough how much of a blast we had reading and discussing this book this month. I mean, it was just a pure delight of soapiness, and so much fun. So thank you again for being flexible with the schedule and spending this evening with us. We just had a blast. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for adjusting. I really appreciate it. So I thank you. I had such a great time talking with Asma at Love Y'all and um some other members of the group. And so like I'm super appreciative that you all took the time to like read and discuss my book. It's such a privilege and it's like so weird to it's still so strange to me that like I'm like people want to, read the words that I just like extemporaneously like type at like 6 a.m. So it's it I can't it's wild and I appreciate it so much.
I think I finished it in like a day, which is very rare for me. Just 'cause I'm
Yeah.
not a fast reader, but I got an arc of it. So I read it last summer on like a long weekend girls trip and like couldn't put it down.
Thank you so much. That was exactly what I wanted to happen. So that like thank you.
I mean, because like hot, messy characters are like the best to read about.
Best. Absolute best.
Yeah, I'm trying not to write characters who have their shit together anymore because like I find I'm much more interested in mess.
I was like, life is too short and the world is too messy to actually have characters who have their acts together at the moment.
Exactly. That's what I want in real life, not like the fantasy.
Not in my entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just a side note before we go, everyone, we're going to be reading Tara Tay's single player in April. Tara's going to be joining us on the 27th to chat. Next week, we're going to be discussing the first half of the book through chapter 28. So, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and I hope you guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So